4th of September 1996. We're at the Avatar Meher Baba Center in Los Angeles, and we're reading from Lord Meher, which is the biography of the Avatar of the Age, Meher Baba. We're at Volume 2, which covers the years of Meher Baba's life, 1922 to 1925. And of course, this masterpiece is compiled and written originally in Hindi by Bal Kalchuri, and I understand that was translated in later years by Param Working Baksawala. We're going to begin then reading. I'll read, and usually read for maybe a page or two, and then if somebody wants to comment, just feel free to talk. And this is page 346. It's the heading JAL'S friend, FAREDOON. A Brahmin named Bapu Ghante lived in Kasba Peth, this is in Pune, and was an extremely innocent man. Bapu gradually became devoted to Meher Baba and occasionally would cook for him. Bapu did not know English, and Baba wanted to teach him the language, so he sang these verses from an English song with Bapu. What's your name? No, no. That's the wrong melody. Is it Mary or is it Mary? No. What's your name? Up and down. Where do you live? London town. You remember that song though?
I don't know.
Doody doo poo wah wah.
Right.
Baba, I don't think Baba sang it to that melody. Baba was amused to hear Bapu sing the replies and often asked him to repeat them again and again. So you could imagine.
Well, let's hear it again.
You could imagine what Bapu said. What's your name? Up and down. Where do you live? London town. Anybody got another rhythm for that? No, you got one, Jeff? Danny probably has one. Danny, you got one? You were there when Duncan. Oh. You got one, Danny? No, okay.
I got one.
Oh.
What's your name? Up and down. Where do you live in London town?
Wow. Hey, I think you got it. Wow, I think that's it. Yeah, well, Baba.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Rosalie got it.
Right.
Anyway, Meher Baba had ordered Bapu not to have sex with his wife. We have missed that one, didn't we? Meher Baba had ordered Bapu not to have sex with his wife. He was cooking for Baba. One night when his wife began to be particularly affectionate, he told her to wait while he went to ask Meher Baba for permission.
Oh.
Hold it, honey. Stay right there. I'll be right back. And Bapu walked the 2 miles from his home in Kasba Peth to the hut during the late evening. I bet he did. So Baba was pleased with Bapu's earnestness and gave his consent.
Oh, okay. The dude goes 4 miles.
And Baba says, yeah, okay.
I'm too tired.
This incident humored the master, and he laughed with joy at Bapu's simplicity and innocence. The sister of Daulat Jangigar, Freni Irani, was very devoted to Harza Babajan and used to visit her often. After Daulat came into Meher Baba's contact, Freni also became profoundly devoted to the master. Her son FAREDOON, who was about 21, had heard about Meher Baba from his best friend Jal, who often tried to persuade him to visit his elder brother. That's Jal Irani. But FAREDOON had no intention of meeting a guru. Freni regularly visited Baba and tried to coax him into joining her, but he stubbornly refused. During February 1922, after Freni had recently returned from seeing Meher Baba, although FAREDOON did not know where his mother had been, she asked her son, "Tomorrow, will you go and ask Meher Baba what time I should come for his darshan?" Not wishing to displease his mother, FAREDOON obeyed, and the next day went to meet Baba, accompanied by Jal. You know who FAREDOON is? Who is?
I think it's Padre.
Oh, yeah, well, that's his name.
FAREDOON
yeah.
driver.
Padre FAREDOON driver.
Upon arriving at the thatched hut, FAREDOON introduced himself. I just could see. FAREDOON introduced himself. Hey, my name is FAREDOON. You remember how Padre was so nice? And delivered his mother's request. Seemingly surprised, Baba replied, "Your mother was here yesterday. Why does she want you to come today?" FAREDOON was taken aback to learn this, but was hesitant to leave. Admiring Meher Baba's features, he was secretly hoping the master would tell him to stay longer, reading his thoughts. Baba told him, if you like, you may sit here for a while. FAREDOON happily sat down. The evening meal arrived, and the master distributed part of it to those present. FAREDOON also partook of the prasad, and then Baba requested that he leave. FAREDOON rose with a heavy heart, for he was genuinely drawn towards Meher Baba. As he was departing, the master told him, "Come whenever you can. My door is always open to you." From that day on, FAREDOON began going to the hut in the evenings after working at his job in a motor garage, and during that period became intensely devoted to Meher Baba. You know, it's like as though coming to these Lord Meher meetings, I feel sort of it's a gap in my week if I miss one. And I could see if a person's heart is on fire and Baba lit the fire in FAREDOON, you'd almost just feel like your heart is burning up without having, and Meher Baba will be able to maybe soothe it a bit after a while. I think that's what FAREDOON got caught in the net. They say
I wish they show a picture of him. There are very few
But I feel
photos.
like working on something. Might be in the next one.
And in Israel, because there's one in that The Beloved where he was incredible, very, very handsome.
On Saturday, February 25th, Dr. Ghante arrived in Pune for his weekly visit. Meher Baba had instructed him that whenever he came to Pune, he should first pay respects to Babajan and have her darshan before doing anything else. On this particular day, however, Ghante delayed visiting Babajan. It was not until late that evening when he finally went to her. Upon his arrival, Babajan grabbed Ghante and began shaking him in the presence of the crowd around her. Then she scolded him. "You scoundrel! You were due here in the morning and are arriving now? You have no shame to show your face here." Ghante was in utter shock. The next morning, Ghante went to see Meher Baba at the hut, carrying a basket of luscious fruits which he had especially brought from Bombay to be used as prasad. Baba turned his face away when Ghante approached, then soon after told him in a harsh tone, "Throw that basket of fruits into a well and immediately return to Bombay. Why did you come here without my permission?" Ghante tried to placate him, but Baba demanded that he obey. Ghante left, but from this he learned that by not following Meher Baba's orders, he would be unwelcome in his darbar, royal court. This was the first time that Ghante had been given a cold reception, and the incident revealed to him the inner link of communication between the two perfect ones, Hazrat Babajan and Meher Baba. During March 1922, Gul Mai K.R. Rani came from Ahmednagar for Meher Baba's darshan. Outside the hut, Baba presented her with his photograph and declared in the presence of all, "Gul Mai's connection with me is very old. She is my spiritual mother." Tears of joy welled up in Gul Mai's eyes. Then he asked her, "I want a promise from you today. Will you give it?" Gul Mai replied, "I would offer my very life to you." Pleased, Baba then said, "Give me your son Adi and your daughter Dali. I want them free for my own purposes. Fulfill your parental responsibilities by arranging your other son Rustam's marriage soon. Later, arrange your daughter Piroja's marriage." Gul Mai accepted his wish, and without consulting her husband, Kakushra, she gave her promise that Adi and Dali belonged to him. She could not deny his request. Afterward, her relatives were to harass her for not allowing Adi and Dali to marry, but she always remained staunch in her faith in Meher Baba's wish. Upon leaving, Gul Mai presented a pair of sandals especially stitched by a cobbler in Ahmednagar named Kanoba Rao Gadekar. Baba accepted them with deep appreciation, immediately putting them on. From that day on, he wore no other sandals for years. Isn't that the question you asked in somebody? Maybe you asked Bao over there, Jeff, about the Gadekar? Wasn't he buried? Yeah.
Yeah, he'd been one of the teachers, I think, at the school.
On another occasion, Gul Mai had come to Pune with her son.
It's a different guy, though. This is a cobbler.
Yeah, I remember about his answer was that it was somehow he was a guy connected to those sandals.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he said, "Well, you remember the
that's right. He
sandals
said
up
he
in the
made those
museum,"
sandals.
and
That's
that's
right.
why he and I was wondering if he warranted burial in the Mandali yard just by making the sandals.
He's buried in Lower Meribad there with all the other men. Yeah.
On another occasion, Gulmai had come to Pune with her son Adi to meet with Meher Baba at Vithal's house.
Yeah, those are the sandals with the comely coat. I think he made the coat too.
It seems like that. That's what, because I remember you saying.
No, he patched the coat.
He
didn't
patched
make
the coat.
The coat was given by Upasani Maharaj's disciple.
Yeah, the coat, he would patch it. He would have it patched, or maybe somebody else patched the coat, but he patched the sandals over and over and
So
over.
I think this guy, though, Gadekar, I think, made those sandals that are there in the museum with the coat.
And he was the one that continued to patch him over the years, I think, also, since he was there in Ahmednagar. Right. See. On another occasion, Gulmai had come to Pune with her son Adi to meet with Meher Baba at Vithal's house. Baba was relaxing and conversing with a few persons. Noticing her in a distress, her hand was in pain, she was tired and had a severe headache. Baba inquired what the trouble was, but she claimed that it was only a headache. Baba replied, "Why do you suffer such a face? This is just the beginning with me. I will make you eat grams," a colloquial Gujarati expression meaning that she would have to face unbearable hardships in the future. He then exclaimed in an enigmatic manner, "What shall I do now? Are you tired even before the game begins?" The next evening, Adi and Gulmai were sitting in the hut with Meher Baba and talking about why he had chosen this site along Ferguson Road. Baba revealed that long ago, when the area was a jungle, a very great sadhu had inhabited this place, and the exact spot where his hut stood had been sanctified by that holy man.
Shortly thereafter, Gulmai's nephew, Sarosh Kai Khushru Irani, arrived from Panchkani, where he was studying in college. However, he did not approach the hut, but stood at a distance by his tonga and spoke with his aunt. Sarosh had heard of Meher Baba through his in-laws, but had no faith in him, and had no desire to meet him. He informed Gulmai that he had left the Panchkani school because he was not given permission by his teacher to appear for the matriculation exam. Gulmai was upset and said, "You did not behave well in Ahmednagar. You troubled your mother and teacher, so you were sent to Panchkani. Now you must have misbehaved there also, and that must be why your teacher refused permission. I don't know what will become of you if you continue doing such things." Sarosh insisted this was not the case. "I did not misbehave there," he said. "I brought something to the notice of the principal, who reproached my teacher. In retaliation, the teacher did not give me the examination form, so I left." Sarosh said he was staying the night in Pune and would go to Ahmednagar the next day. Gulmai told him to come and see her before leaving. After he had gone, Baba asked who the young man was. Gulmai explained that he was her nephew. Baba then expressed his wish to meet him. The next day, when Sarosh arrived, Baba soon called for him. Although he was reluctant, he entered the hut. On seeing Meher Baba, a wondrous change swept over Sarosh, and he bowed to the master's feet, repenting for his antagonistic thought. Meher Baba rubbed his head and back while Sarosh told him about the trouble he had caused his parents and his doubts about him as a guru up until that moment. Baba then remarked, "If you do as I say, I will make you a king." Sarosh was taken aback. Baba then instructed Sarosh to study to be an electrician in Pune.
That is Sarosh, huh? That's really cousin Sarosh?
Adi's cousin.
He was, yeah.
Baba himself later went and arranged his admittance to the school and even his boarding and lodging at Kodu's home with his cousin Adi, who was also studying in Pune. Sarosh informed his parents that he was now studying in Pune. Although his father was pleased with this news, he would have protested because he was vehemently against Meher Baba. He would have been upset if he had known that Sarosh's admittance in the new school had been arranged by Baba. Sarosh, was profoundly affected by the Master's loving kindness and concern, and from that time on became one of his closest circle members. He was the mayor of Ahmednagar. He had a car business.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
and then the Sarosh Canteen.
Yeah.
Sarosh,
And
yes.
Sarosh Theater.
Cinema.
Cinema.
Oh, yeah.
I've been to that cinema.
He owned a lot of Ahmednagar, I think, in the 30s or
But
20s.
just in that little compound where the trust office was the Sarosh. It still says, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's still, it's sort of, yeah, it's sort of,
And
you
then
know.
the
Only at one
canteen
point,
is run by somebody
Baba
else.
said that he would make him the king of Ahmednagar.
He became the mayor of the town.
Yeah.
Like was in Ramju's book, the book he wrote, what's the one?
Sobs and Sobs.
But it's Ramju's diaries.
Yeah.
He says Sarosh was the only early Mandaliya disciples who, when he came in contact with Baba, did not need any more convincement or proof of Baba's divinity. He didn't, just by being in his presence.
Who's this?
Sarosh.
As Sarosh was concerned
When
I couldn't get out of India.
What?
He had some connections with the Indian Airlines and Air India. One time there was a strike in.
Oh, he had connections all over. He was like an honorary army officer.
Yeah, so he helped me sort of gave me instructions how to get out to India, what person, and he'd say, "Where are you going, sir?" I said, "Oh, you know." He says, "Well, let me talk to somebody." So he'd call somebody, and right away the road would open up
Pretty
for
well
him.
connected, I guess.
Yeah, so he was a good man to know. Isn't that great? Really a good businessman too.
What year is all this happening?
This is the 20s now.
22.
This is when Sarosh is a young man. Sarosh is probably in his 20s at this time.
They all were in their 20s.
Yeah, they're all in their 20s.
Yeah.
Baba was 28.
28, so Sarosh probably about the same
Young,
age.
yeah.
So, and then February 25th, so Baba just turned 28.
Sarosh was a pretty cool looking guy, too.
Let's see.
They all were, wasn't they?
Yeah.
This has got his hair parted down the middle.
He allowed him to live separately from the Mandali, and he allowed him to open his own business.
Yeah, he was a businessman.
He had an automobile business, repair, like a garage.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Sarosh.
It's there.
Yeah, it's
It's there. It's there at the trust office near the. Right
So
next to
now
the
it's
trust.
rumored that the Ahmednagar Mafia runs it.
oh, really?
Those gangsters that supposedly...
Wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, probably get a lot of pocket money
This
for them.
is,
Do you have the Ramju book?
Oh, Ramju's diaries. They should be here.
this might be in the...
Could be.
But on,
Oh, Dance of Love still there.
if you go to page 399, and then it's a it'd be page 400, this photo. And Sarosh is the tall guy.
Tall one. He was Adi Irani's cousin.
This, I did meet him with his glasses on in later years.
This is back when
Well, he died in 73.
Yeah, I
Sometime in
met him in
73.
71 and 72. I remember he was married to Vilu.
Hi.
And we were always encouraged.
Like this.
We were always encouraged to stay at Vilu's villa, but I'd always
Where
stayed
else
at the
was there to
Dowlat
stay?
or the.
Oh,
I'd stay at the Dowlat or I'd stay at the Ashoka.
Ashoka. Which are both gone.
The Ashoka's torn down? Or it's changed hands?
The Ashoka.
It's a very much of it.
Yeah, we were there last year.
You stayed at the. You went to eat at the Ashoka?
Each every day.
No, there's Ashoka restaurants there, but the hotels there.
Hotel. It's a Ashoka Hotel.
Beer, that
Yeah, the big-
16 cents.
Oh, you know
Big,
what?
16 rupee.
The
Wow.
Sablo.
Hotel
That's where
was
people
for ice
stay.
cream.
too.
Yes,
The
Sablo
Dalit
is-
and
Ramju's
the
Sablo.
Sablo.
diaries.
The Sablo used to have
No,
They must be
That's a
found locked up.
Oh, that...
All set?
Go ahead, Gus.
On March 11th, 1922, the Hindu festival of Holy Fire was celebrated with a game of Atya Patya.
What is Atya Patya?
Start again.
It's like
What's
hopscotch.
Oh, like hopscotch.
Hopscotch.
There are lines, and each line represents a
Atya.
Atya,
Mostly.
And later, by burning a fire in an earthen pit,
Kathy's and children.
Mir Baba himself threw a fragment of wood into the fire, and the holy festival was started. He explained the fire is a symbolic of the fire of divine love, and the wood represents the lower self, which is necessarily meant to be burned in the fire. A group of fishermen, Kasba Peth, was present and entertained the master with bhajan music until midnight. So late, Mai and Adi were told by Baba to sleep inside his house. Early in the morning, Mir Baba...
Hi, this can hear.
We can hear.
You can hear.
You're at a door.
When you
The
get
traffic.
Early the next morning, Mir Baba suddenly threw a sitar, tambura, and table drum into a dying fire and remarked, "It is an offering." Later he had the ashes buried in small clay models of musical instruments erected over their graves. From that time on, the holy festival was transferred into the master's Duni day, and this earthen pit was kept burning continuously for many days. Latif gave a new bicycle to Mir Baba, and lottery was proposed to decide to whom the master should give it. All the tickets were sold to followers, and it was decided that the drawing should be held during the picnic at the village of Chinchawat. Mir Baba met there with his followers on Saturday, March 25th, and in the evening the lottery was held. Nervous won the bicycle. But then the master gave a strange order. Nervous old bicycle was taken in exchange, and Baba ordered it to be broken into pieces and thrown into a nearby well. Shortly after this, Baba asked Nervous if he felt uneasy about his bicycle being destroyed and thrown away. Nervous expressed no regret, however. The other men were at loss to understand why this order had been given, since Nervous' bicycle was still in good condition. After Mir Baba returned to Pune from Chinchwad, Bailey informed that while Baba was away, he had inadvertently fallen into a well near the hut, but was miraculously rescued from the drowning by a stranger. When Bailey was questioned what time the incident had occurred, the other men found out that it had happened at the exact hour when the pieces of Nervous' bicycle was being thrown into the well. The men then realized why the master had given such a strange order, and later he explained, "Instead of allowing Bailey to drown, I think the bicycle in the well was simply an exchange of gross mediums."
Who was going to drown? Bailey?
Bailey.
Boy, Bailey, has been a very tragic figure in this Lord Mayor. Volume 1, he was in the military. He wanted Baba to join the military with him. Baba didn't because his father intervened. But then Bailey goes in, so spends 2 years in the military, in the Navy, gets involved in the commissary business. I guess he's a supply enlisted man. He starts embezzling either funds and goods, starts visiting brothels and taverns, and becomes a heavy drinker. He gets caught by fellow Navy people, tried in court-martial, sentenced to 2 years in prison, and he gets out in a year and a half, which is funny because Babajan, when she first met him, she says, 2 years. He says, what are you talking about? 2 years they want from you. No, I got it down to a year and a half. And this was done 5 years before he goes into the Navy.
Was he the one who Baba used to go to the Tower of Silence with? And all that?
Yes.
Right. But anyway, the story goes on. When Bailey comes back out of the Navy, he's an outcast. His friends don't want to associate with him. His parents actually disown him. He gets to the point of so much depression, he's ready to drink a cup of poison when he gets a knock on the door of a person named Homi, who Baba sent from the toddy shop, that was a patron, and says, Bailey, Merwan wants to see you. And he said, go away, but finally he agreed. He opens the door and he sees this guy Homi, and he hides the poison. So, and then he runs to the toddy shop, and Merwan sees him coming, and he was pacing, nervously, Baba, in front of the the county shop. He sees him, and they both run to each other and embrace. And he starts sobbing in Baba's arms, and Baba says, "Don't worry, I'll take care of you. Stay with me. I'll look after you. Just obey me." And from then on, I guess, Bailey became one of Baba's first disciples. Is that not? I said this to Adele, and in Rosary I got this standing little joke. But, well, Suhas, you could probably then substantiate this. I said Bailey was one of Baba's first disciples. And Adele says, I tend to take issue with that. I don't think he was a Mandali, and he is not one of the circle. No, I mean, no, but I'm saying, this is fun. You know, he's not one of the circle at all. And I says, well, maybe you're right, Adele. And so, Suhas, can you confirm? He's not one of the circle, is he?
But whether he is or not is not important, because even if you get into the book later on, a lot of people were guessing as to who was in the circle and who was not.
Yeah.
So that's all left to conjecture. It doesn't really matter, as long as Baba accepted him within his inner.
Yeah, I see. So actually, he's still one of Baba's first disciples, first followers.
And Baba and Bailey.
Baba took him under this wing and said,
Yes.
stay with me.
was one of the first people that
That's
would go with Baba to all these different places, with Basni Maharaj's place and Sai Baba's.
Who?
Kodu.
Oh, Kodu.
The one whose bicycle they tore apart and threw in a well to exchange for Bailey's life.
wow.
Bailey was at the same time that Baba told Kodu to tear up his bicycle and throw it in a well. Bailey was drowning in a well nearby the hut somewhere else, but got rescued about the same time.
So in other words, Maya took the bicycle and exchanged Bailey for it.
Gross exchange,
You know,
just like he says right
Oh, wow. It almost reminds you of that poltergeist scene where go into the light, into the light. You see all these things just being drawn into the, going inside there like pieces of furniture and stuff, Anyway.
Baba was the light, and he did it himself.
And one more point, Fred.
Yes, Suhas.
Baba did join the Navy.
It's too cold. Close. Close it. Yeah, it's too cold now.
He did join the Navy. Baba did join the Navy.
I know.
And his father got him out.
Exactly. That would be one of the most unbelievable questions to ask in a trivia situation, because when we first read it a couple of weeks ago, we were all dumbfounded. Meher Baba was joined the Navy. He did. He was ready to leave the following day until his father went to the Navy recruiter and says, "Please, I'm Shiriyar Irani. You know me. You respect me as a businessman in this town. I did not give permission and my blessing to my son to join the Navy. I beg of you, strike him from the list." And so the registrar said, "Shiriyar, any other man I probably wouldn't do it for, but we respect you so much, we'll take him off." But he joined because of Bailey's insistence. Bailey says, and Merwan says later, when he finds out about Bailey's trouble, he says, that's why I wanted to go to Aden, A-D-E-N.
Aden is on the Gulf.
Right, with Bailey, because he knew what was probably in store for Bailey. And he wanted to be with his good brother. But he was separated, and so Bailey had to go through this.
1.5.
Yes, that was so funny, because when we were reading this account where Babajan says, "Wait, they say 2 years." No, I got him to take 1.5.
Got them to take 1.5.
Yeah, and then he Bailey says, "What are you talking about?" He says, "My son, you'll find out someday, my son."
Do you guys recognize Naja? Who met Naja? It's young Naja.
Is that her baby?
Yeah. Look at her face.
Where's Sunamasi?
Tell you, Sue,
No,
you
but
know a
That's
lot.
her mother.
But look at
You
the
know quite
eyes.
a bit. You must have
it
read
must be
this
a close
Lord
relative
Maynard
if it's
back
not
and
her.
forth.
I've read the
Does
second
it
book.
say
You
Naja?
want a little
Naja's
background?
Hender's sister.
That's so
Yeah, but
wonderful, Sue.
it
So
sure looks
wonderful.
like her.
Well,
Anji gave me all these
Cousin Naja. It's his cousin. Yeah, but I've never seen such a young picture of her.
Yeah, those eyes.
Well,
That's
Naja was
her
Baba's
eyes.
cousin.
Yeah.
Naja was Baba's cousin too.
Yeah.
Oli was an Indian festival.
Hindu and Naja were brother and sister.
Sunamasi is buried up near Mira.
Oh, yeah.
It's Mira, Baba Mira, Rana.
It's hard to keep all these Iranis and
Sunamasi.
Parsis straight there.
So you might say it's
All
what
have the same
Naga's
names. They're all.
Well, now it's really-
Well, his early disciples were a lot of his relatives
Yeah.
who accepted.
Well, they were all relatives anyway, because they all
To have a giant.
were first cousins.
All the women
Oh,
from
constantly.
this side.
Yeah.
would be
They do that in the
blonde,
Parsi
Oh, they do?
family because
Um,
Cousin married.
they can marry from
You
the
do too.
mother's side. From the mother's side.
Muslims do too.
It doesn't damage the bloodline?
Arnavaz and Nariman were cousins.
Yeah, my
That's
sister's son can marry my
That's why they
daughter.
got a lot of
Martin sounds
From
like
the mother's
It's
side.
kind of stuff.
No, father, son, and mother.
Sorry,
Oh,
Pastor Greg is
Oh,
very
yeah.
aware.
Oh, really?
Cousins.
yeah,
She's
first
the
cousin.
last.
cousin.
Next to
Some of
Baba's
them,
house.
I know at least one Parsi woman who's got 6 toes on each foot.
You do uncle, that's very bad.
Did you discuss this with
I
someone?
will marry with Parvis.
We
How did you
always laugh
come?
about
How did you
that.
come to these observations or conclusions? Did you somebody inform you about these? I didn't know.
For instance, Mick Hamilton.
This is new to me.
Mick Hamilton, whose son is about to marry into the Irani clan, has been doing an Irani family tree, and he got a computer program to help him plot it out. He says, but it's all screwy because the computer doesn't make allowances for first cousins marrying first cousins. And so he's had to do all this extra work because there's an awful lot of it.
Oh, yeah.
Family tree.
Wow, that is.
Sam and
That explains a lot,
Rose
doesn't it?
No, but I didn't know this. I really
It
didn't.
had a lot to do also with the faith because
Yeah,
people
they didn't
in
want
India,
people to marry
because of
outside of-
different, they don't marry outside their faith. So the Parsis in India were actually that come from Iran. That's why the last name Iran. And they were very few.
Well, Iranis aren't Parsis, though, actually.
No, they are.
Parsis are the ones who've been there a lot longer. And the Iranis, the
Iran is
Zoroastrians,
us. We are Iranian. They are Parsi. But they came from Iran, therefore they call
but
from
So you're
they're
Kathy
Zoroastrian.
I am Iranian.
Kathy Irani.
Yeah, no. My last name is Iranian. My country is Iran.
Yeah, but you weren't Zoroastrian, right?
No,
Yeah.
Muslim.
The Iranis were all Zoroastrian. They worship
Yeah,
Zoroastrian.
So
Iranian
were the
Muslim, they too.
Parsis.
Iran, the twin
No, but-
country.
But in India, the people who have the name
Yeah,
Iranian,
Iranian.
they're Zoroastrians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
So
all
that's
So are
Zoroastrian.
Parsi.
right.
Yeah,
But the Parsis have
yeah.
been there a lot longer.
Yeah.
The
Yeah,
Iranis
right.
are more recent.
Recently
arrivals.
from
The
Iran.
Parsis may have intermarried with the Indian people when they settled in the Gujarat state, northern part of Pakistan.
The Parsis are pretty intermarried too. I mean, like, you get an awful lot of intermarriage among the Dadchanjis and all of them too. I mean, Nariman and Arnavaz were cousins. And
Because JAL'S store, for instance, looks more maybe Indian than Parsi.
actually, Dastur means priest.
And he can marry.
Priest.
He can marry or do.
So I don't know.
Well,
But-
okay, yeah.
But
He can perform a marriage. Yes.
I don't know if he really can. I think he was teasing. I don't think he was actually ever trained as a Zoroastrian priest. Maybe he wrote
Oh, he could be.
But,
No, I
So-
God was a priest of the Dastur.
So Baba must have been aware of this goings on, of this family, or not family,
Well, it
cousin
wasn't-
marriages.
Everybody in India.
It wasn't
I mean, it's
frowned
just
on.
a culture.
It wasn't frowned on there.
It's not frowned
Yeah.
on like
No,
it's here.
it's
Yeah.
well, it's
And-
legal in California.
California is second.
It is legal in
It
California?
is?
I mean, just as an obscure bit of trivia, I was reading, there was something in the LA Times recently about like the states that allowed, and I was shocked that North Carolina didn't, but California did allow.
Anyway, that's my theory as to one of the reasons why Baba's got all these east-west marriages going on now. He's deepening the
I
gene
see.
pool. Got a
Exactly.
little shallow.
Exactly. He's marrying American and Indian women, like Buck and Mara, and who's this?
Molly and Mary.
Molly and Marwan. Jane Shireen Bonner, and
Nozer and
this
Kathy.
soon to be what's his mixed son? Yeah, that's a lot though.
But Val's daughter
Daughter.
was Hindu.
Sorab. Sorab and Rustam.
Well, generations to come, it could start a totally different bloodline. I mean, these five couples.
That's what's going to happen.
Well, these five couples Jeff just mentioned totally could start a chain reaction that could lead to thousands of people.
Sometimes I think this was.
That's the new humanity right there. Hey, we hear that something.
I doubt it, but maybe.
Sometimes I think that that's exactly what's going to happen.
Yeah, but you pretended you knew what that chart meant too, so now.
He had a concept.
Exactly.
He had his own
Had a grip
concept.
of it. And what was the quote? The quote was understand. Now, how does Baba use understand?
No, but honestly,
Remember, honey, you
well,
don't understand
yeah.
anything.
Ronald dealing with
actually,
charts.
Muhammad the Monk
That's-
at one point when I
that's
was
in the
over there,
museum.
started started laughing and said,
And
Erica,
in
he doesn't
Maribot,
understand a damn
Kenny
thing.
did a TV show and also a talk show describing it, and he sounded, and also here locally. It was so wonderfully presented. I had him on as a TV guest. And now Jeff has said he went to India and basically described, what somebody interpreted as such.
Funny.
It's funny.
And Jeff, can you tell Suhas, what did they say of Kennedy or anybody's interpretation of the chart? That basically there is none? He just came from India and they said, what?
Well, Judy Stevens was showing us the chart in the museum there, and after Kennedy had been really impressive in one of the nights he did it here at the center and explained the chart, or at least his concepts behind the chart, and I was quite impressed by what he explained. And Kennedy's stock rose greatly in my view on that evening. And then Judy said that Baba said, if anyone ever tells you they understand what this chart means, don't believe them because only I understand what it means.
Well, but still,
wait a minute, though.
still,
Think about that for a minute. That's a very interesting statement. Because it really is, because here's a man that practiced silence all his life, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so when he says something, when he dictates something, he says, understand. Now, what does understand in Meher Baba syntax or language?
I think her exact words were, if anyone comes to the LA Baba Center and tries to explain what this chart could potentially mean, don't even let them beg your ear.
former wife, remember?
She lives in India.
Now in India.
She gives tours at the museum.
No, but I'll tell you honestly,
This is what
I
Bob
think-
She said nobody does except Baba.
I think though Kennedy's interpretation was very good, regardless. I think it's that kind of a diagram or a drawing to where whatever you almost interpret is probably, there's truth in it. It's just exactly. So anyway, Buck,
So he says that somebody doesn't understand what he's saying.
Gus, why don't you start from the position there?
It's a double negative.
Bailey.
That's what that is.
Go ahead.
During April, Meher Baba broached the subject of moving to Bombay and forewarned that those men who wish to accompany him should break all connection with their families. Ram Jew was intent on joining, so Baba ordered him to dispose of his watch shop. He told Ram Jew, you need not worry about anything. Along with your spiritual progress, I will make certain that you and your family do not suffer materially. Remember, the whole world is imagination. Value of insignificant has even less than a dream. Ram Jew tried to sell his business but failed. So the master told him, whosoever you happen to meet, first say to them that your shop is not yet sold.
This is good. I love it.
Yeah, I love this.
Ramju tried to sell his business but failed. So the master told him, who you are? I read that, right? Okay.
No, I like it.
Ramju had recently discontinued all his political and social activities without explanation. So when he met his acquaintances and relatives were greeting them with the strange statement, my shop is not yet sold, he thought he had gone mad. This is peculiar, although was quite humiliating to respectable businessmen like Ramju. And as a consequence, he stopped going out of his house. However, he had to repeat the statement to whomever came to see him at his home. Therefore, he was unable to avoid complying with the Meher Baba's orders. During this period, a relative of Ramju died. Due to his public embarrassment, he decided not to attend the funeral. Yet he had to go out the same day on an urgent errand, so he took the precaution of leaving late. Choosing a circuitous route, confident that the procession had passed by then. On his way, however, he was shocked to see the funeral march come to escape accounting it. He stood on one side as the casket passed, humbly saluting every person with a statement. My shop is not yet sold.
Oh my
Everyone
God.
that came by.
My
He
shop.
felt utterly foolish ridiculousness of this word. These Mohammedans in the procession glanced at one another, signifying that they were more convinced than ever that Ramju, Abdullah, was gone completely mad. Out of desperation, Ramju asked permission to arrange a lottery for the sale of the shop, to which Mayor Baba agreed. This canceled the first order, but Ramju had to face another difficulty. After the tickets were, he was allowed to sell to match his disciples, but the other half he was ordered to sell to his relatives and acquaintances. Ramju felt quite reluctant to approach the people in Navala. For many days he had been avoiding anyone, and he knew since the embarrassing incident at the funeral procession. However, he swallowed his pride and solicited the tickets in this manner, and by the master's Nazar, he was able to sell his shop and accompany Mayor Baba to Bombay.
You already got.
Hey, Rosie, you want to continue?
You already gone to the point. I don't remember because I read this a long time ago. Where Ramju had to sell Pasni Maharaj's biography to the Muslim community.
Oh no!
No, that was when they were in the Manzil, I think.
Oh, that was later.
Yeah.
That's probably coming up, and when they get to the bottom. Oh, that must be interesting. Oh,
it also reminds me of that story. Bao went through some very similar things. The one when he had to go around to everyone and say, "You fool, keep silence after 9."
Oh yes.
Remember that story? He had to go to everybody.
Oh, that was
Sitar,
the
Marazan.
Mandali. He had to do that.
Yeah, to the Mandali. But he had to go to each one of them.
No, this is Marazan.
Marazan.
But can you imagine how those guys must have felt about him? What is he up to?
But these are orders from Baba.
No, I don't think they knew. Baba told them. I don't think Baba told the other men that he was on your orders. Did they?
No, they thought it was really obnoxious.
They thought he was just obnoxious.
But I mean, just where
he was told that he can't divulge anything or say anything to anybody.
Was Baba around in 19?
No.
This is much.
This is later.
So that I'm just saying it's interesting that he used this kind of humiliation pattern. The other story was about the funeral. Reminds me about the story about him carrying he had to carry this drink on his head. It was real heavy, and Bao, who was a very respectable guy and everything, felt embarrassed that he felt this is what servants should do. This is like I think it was in Satara when he first come to Bao, and there was the manager of the bungalow they were staying at, who Bao had been very impressed with, and I think Bao had really impressed him too. He's got all these degrees and he was very well educated guy. And he was hoping, as he's walking along with the manager from the bungalow, he didn't see him. And he was being very careful as he walked to make sure that he was going down the street where that guy wasn't there. He's looking ahead and he doesn't see him. And then suddenly the guy comes up from the side. And the guy says hello, and that was very embarrassed.
But it was a real heavy pot, too.
Well, the purpose of all this was to break their attachment to the gross world, and also to break them from their gross sanskaras.
This was probably good for a laugh.
That humiliation things was in my shops that get sold in meetings, relatives, and a funeral procession. Even they try to avoid that, they still stumble into their own situations.
That's a different kind of karma.
You're still on that? Let go of that.
Yeah, that's all. That's a new one on the kid. That's a new one on the kid.
But I remember Aaron said that in that book that he said that you have no idea how embarrassing and humiliating our life with Baba was.
I think I'm starting to get a feel for it, Jeff.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like he's right here with us doing that.
They go so many times. Knock on your door like, oh, Kennedy, I got something for you.
Here Baba began to impress disciples to pay deference to Gustaji. During this period, he had Gustaji's photograph displayed on the wall of his hut, and at one time garlanding it with flowers, remarked, "To garland Gustaji is to garland myself." Quite a picture. On another occasion, Meher Baba referred to the journey along the spiritual path like a train ride. Different types of people being in different carriages, and I am the driver, Gustaji is the engine, Sadashiv is the coupling joining the carriages to the engine, Aramji is the guard, and Bailey is the railway tracks. The rest of the circle of men are carriages of different classes according to each one's past connection with me. Such spontaneous pronouncements by Baba would strengthen the ardor of those in his intimate contact, thus enabling those young men to decide to leave even their families and go away to live with him. Amidst the divine intoxication of bliss permeating the atmosphere around his hut, Meher Baba gradually inspired his chosen circle to leave the worldly life for the spiritual quest. The Master would diffuse spiritual rays of light and knowledge during his talks and expound truths to those near him during every activity. Once Meher Baba was playing cards with the men, and he asked them, "Do any of you know the through 10 represent the lower evolutionary stages through which the soul has to pass, gathering experience, consciousness, and strength along the way. The Jack symbolizes the human form with its fully developed consciousness and representing at this point the stage of bhakti, devotion. The Queen symbolizes the stages of karma and Raj Yoga, or tarikat, the spiritual journey of the soul on the inner path. The King denotes gnosis, knowledge. Surpassing all these preliminary stages is the ace, signifying the one without a second, the ultimate reality of God, the infinite consciousness, Paramatma. The game Gilli Danda is played by striking a small piece of wood laying on the ground on its pointed end with a 2-foot-long stick, thereby making it rise and rotate in the air. Before the smaller piece falls to the ground, it should be struck again with the longer stick, hitting it as far as possible. One day, Meher Baba explained the game's spiritual significance. When a perfect master selects a disciple to become worthy of God realization, he invariably strikes at the lower part of his nature, the limited self or ego mind. This corresponds to the striking of the smaller piece by the larger stick to enable it to rise in the air. After the limited or lower ego mind of the disciple is shattered, the second hit consists in driving him onward toward the goal of God realization. This ordeal is explanatory of the second stroke, which sends the piece suspended in the air to a distance proportionate to the impact of the hit. Kind of kills the game hearing about it that way, somehow. The game Atya Patya, a rectangular field with many horizontal lines and one bisecting vertical line. Once, when the game was being vigorously played, Meher Baba stopped play and called the men under the shade of a nearby tree, where he explained its spiritual meaning. The horizontal lines are the barriers representing pride, anger, greed, jealousy, hatred, envy, and egoism, which the traveler on the spiritual path has to overcome before attaining the spiritual goal of God realization. The bisecting line represents lust, which persists to the end, even long after the other undesirable qualities have been subdued and overcome. Once the goal is attained, these very faults are elevated to the level of divine attributes, and nothing but good accrues to others when they are expressed. Those on the path can and do help others, yet only up to the point or level where they themselves are. But those who have realized the ultimate state of God and reach the goal of God consciousness can help others stranded at any stage of the inner journey. With such simple discourses, Meher Baba drew his circle of men and women disciples to him, inspiring them. His presence was of divine light, and some of his discourses would be so effective and memorable that they were remembered verbatim and repeated by those who heard them for the rest of their lives. Many things about the Master impressed the early disciples as they came to discover who their Baba really was. 3 recurrent things in particular impressed all of them about Meher Baba, whom they would refer to as Baba or Master. He would read the minds and hearts of those around him and would express their thoughts in one way or another, making them feel that Baba knew everything they were thinking. Without their asking, the Master would reply to questions that were troubling them. And lastly, Baba would often make predictions that at a certain time a certain person would be coming, or at a certain time a certain event would take place. Invariably, these predictions would come true. Throughout Pune, he was no longer known as Merwan Shariar Irani, except by strangers. Within months, he became revered as Meher Baba, who won the hearts of people with jokes, games, singing, and music. His treatment of both men and women disciples up until then was full of sympathy, affection, and intimate camaraderie. During 1921, a statue of the great soldier Shivaji was inaugurated in the main square of Pune. One day during a stroll through the city, Meher Baba explained that for certain spiritual work, there occur in varying centuries 2 types of avataric incarnations, major and minor. He then revealed his past minor incarnation as a great soldier of the Deccan. In a past lifetime, I was Shivaji. Until recently, the British have left nothing undone to detract from Shivaji historically. Yet, they have now had a statue unveiled by the Prince of Wales last year in Shaniwarwada, Pune, when I am present in this form. Glancing at the men present, he said, "You were all with me at the time of Shivaji. Baramji was Afzal Khan, the Mughal general who was killed by Shivaji. Sadashiv Patel was Taraji Mansur, the man who gave his life to save Shivaji. In Maharashtra state, people have great reverence and love for Shivaji, and these statements further consolidated the early disciples' faith in Meher Baba's greatness. After he revealed this, the men talked of it among themselves for days. Later in private, he explained to Shivaji's wife, "There is much significance in the role of Shivaji's activities in founding the Maratha kingdom in the Deccan Plateau during the 17th century, Maharashtra. Born around 1630, Shivaji was a versatile personality and leader, a statesman, social reformer, military warlord, master of guerrilla warfare, an advocate of religious toleration. Called the Grand Rebel, he was devoted to Hindu religious freedom and fought against the Muslim oppression and persecution of Hindus, instigated by the Mughal ruler Aurangzeb. Shivaji was spiritually guided by Swami Ramdas, a Hindu Sadguru. Although veiled from his true identity, Shivaji reorganized the country of India and prepared the people's consciousness for the advent of Avatar, especially among the Muslims and Hindus in the Deccan." Kennedy, you want to read that? No, Baba.
So Adi was Shivaji's wife in his life. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Adi.
Adi.
K. Rani.
Yeah, that's what he just said.
Just read that. It's Shivaji's
Shivaji's wife.
Oh my God. He's my best friend.
Shivaji or Adi?
Well, close, but I mean, I didn't know Nadi was Shivaji's wife. Wow.
Adi is a man's name.
No, but
No, in a previous life. 'Cause this is like the 1600s. And, yeah, long time ago.
Trying to point out how they were connected to him in a previous
So, in other
existence.
words,
That's why they all
Baba authenticated this. Baba basically is the
Baba
person.
said this.
Baba said it.
Yeah.
When I read
Now, see, that's wild because that knocks the thing. One of the boys, Adi's a man's man. Whoosh.
in the state of Maharashtra.
It's like a deja vu because we're sitting here another time
Empire
reading this
before
or
the
something.
British took
And it came
over
up that
from,
other time.
Isn't a statue of
There is a
Shivaji
statue in
right there
Bombay.
in the square? And there's also
Like
one
Mary
in
said she never been
Ahmednagar. There's one of Shivaji in
I've
it.
never
If
been
you
there.
read into Baba's activities, they all took around in that Deccan area, the Maharashtra
Wow.
state.
I'll pass.
I'm going to take myself into
Phyllis said, I
India.
don't like the
That's where the
Pretend I'm at Sarosha's canteen.
These cookies are from, I brought them from India.
Oh wait, you need a big
Cashew.
fat juicy fly on there.
What a vibration of India. This is a vibration.
Oh, I used to drink their ginger in this. It looked like this filthy bottle, and it looked like eerie, but there was so much ginger.
Oh, Dukes.
Yeah.
Dukes.
I
Yeah,
mean,
the ginger.
it would just, your hair would
Oh.
go wow.
Oh, I mean, it
It's
makes,
great.
Drink.
I love
it makes this ginger ale you buy here, this reeds, like
Oh,
water.
ginger
Oh, yeah,
Compared to what
watered
that
down
stuff-
water. I
that
mean, this
stuff
was
is-
like an
As soon as I could
experience.
start eating again, I brought some ginger ale.
Are you craving crackers and cheese? Like?
No, I'm
Because when
just
I had-
having stomach
Well,
problems.
when I had my runs when I came back from the first 2 trips way back in the 70s.
Actually, cheese probably isn't good because it's a protein.
I have an idea too. Then you just.
What?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she just came
Let
back.
it run.
They came back on
I
Friday.
just brought them from
Biscuits.
India.
They bought it. They
They're
bought it
cashew
Friday in
biscuits.
India.
Did you buy those at the Mayhair Darbar?
No, at this STD stand.
So what about the Estes then?
STD stand right next to the
That's what it's called.
What is it
That's the
called?
name of Mayhair Darbar.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Mayhair Darbar.
Yeah, see, there's that.
Good day.
Yeah,
Good day.
Show.
Yeah.
That's a new thing, I guess, since you were there.
Yeah.
You can now
Oh, you'd
walk
love it.
about
Water.
100 yards down the road and you can get cold sodas and stuff.
It's like a
In
little
Maribor.
7-Eleven.
Somebody opened up a 7-Eleven,
It's like a stand there. You can get cookies and candy
and they probably get a lot of
cold
Westerners
drinks.
buying there.
That's all it is.
And they have the telephone and
They
fax
have a
machine.
telephone and fax machine.
Is it open by Baba lovers? Baba lovers open it. Talk about enterprising individuals, huh?
So we should do here as part of
No hamburgers.
Yeah.
They got room
Oh,
for
should
a
we take?
football.
Let's take.
This was humorous.
You did. It's true.
Maybe you don't remember.
I know that you did tell me something.
Dr.
Dr.
Gindi.
Gindi is Suhas's father.
When I
In
read
fact, your father's pictures in this,
that was
in one of the volumes.
maybe towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end. It is.
But I haven't seen it in English. It may be in the original
It's in volume 10.
Is it?
10.
The volume 10, which just came out. It's available through mail order.
How many volumes are there?
There's 22.
22 eventually. I just got some.
Yeah, but the book's already been written.
Yeah.
No, the manuscript, 10 have been completed in book form.
It's all been edited and it's just a matter of
Printing it.
you can only get printed
Yes.
so
many
quickly
copies in
because
English.
Costs
of
money,
the
too.
cost.
It's already coming in volume 10.
Yes.
I thought it would come more.
Volume
like
10
volume
covers all the way to 1952. So the last 11 volumes, or 12 volumes, will cover from 52 to 69.
Yeah.
My dad didn't get involved with Baba till like 62 or
Oh, really?
61.
Oh. Well, I know I read about your father in
You know, you may have read about him in one of the other
some
books, too.
periodical, yes, or,
You know, or in the Glow or something like that.
Before he dropped his body, Baba asked for my dad.
Right.
The last person he asked for.
He came from Bombay?
Bombay.
Yeah.
It was delayed. It's in
And-
Erich's book.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And what was the whole story that your father got there and...
Well, he didn't get there in time. He was delayed because the driver had to pull up to the side of the road, and he just stood there like in a daze, the driver of the car. My dad would always tell him to hurry, hurry, you know. Anytime Baba called, my dad would just...
But the driver was acting abnormal or strange.
But hadn't your father been there like a month or a little while
He had
before?
been before,
And-
and he was on call, so Adi called him.
I remember.
Whenever Baba called, my dad would leave everything and just go.
And wasn't it also, there was some story about when he'd come there before, was it that Baba had been really sick, but then when your father arrived, Baba was beaming and your father says, "What's wrong? Why was I called? He seems like he's doing fine."
You
Was
just
it?
called him to get him out there when you wanted him.
Yeah. But then as soon as your father left, I think he went back to being very... I think Bao told the
It
story.
confounded my dad with all
Yeah.
his expertise. He
Yeah.
just couldn't figure out how Baba would recover sometimes.
Are you a doctor too? No.
Have you met Baba?
Yeah.
How old were you?
20.
Really?
Because you didn't tell us anything.
Yeah.
Because you're new Baba Lager, or no, you're not Baba Lager. Just come by us.
You know,
I
Sue,
follow Baba in my own way.
exactly.
I have a great devotion.
Suhas is a man of his internal self.
Like him.
He has his own, and I respect that wholeheartedly. I love that.
I mean, I believe that you do have to devote your life to Baba. You have to practice devotion to him. When you have devotion, that's the way in India they talk about bhakti. All the mandali were devoted to Baba, to every need that he had, they would answer. That's the way it is. It's very hard to translate that devotion aspect to the Western world. You have no concept of what devotion to the deity is.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
There's a lot of
No,
divorced
I
Christians.
was trying to get a little nap in until you said that.
No, I agree with Suhas.
Talking
Most
about
in generality. I mean, you're an exception.
You have
No, I'm not talking about me.
Oh.
Wait a minute, Fred. What
It's an ancient devotion. I know what you mean, but there are devoted religious people.
I'll take you to church with me on Sunday. You can tell my mother and sister that.
Right, well,
That's not
what,
devotion.
I don't know, what do you mean then?
Yeah, right. We've been talking about two different things.
Well, devotion is where you think about the Lord constantly.
Right. I know people that have done that their whole life. Or most of them. I come out of the black church.
Churches in America, but
Right. I come out of the black church. That's not any church.
You have to go to
The
a
black
Baptist church.
Baptist.
No, Baptist, when you get down, there's other levels beside Baptist. There's Methodist, there's, there's a whole lot. So you say the no devotion, no. You are mistaken, my friend.
Well, I don't see that outwardly in the Western world.
Right, that's why you're
But
Indian.
what he's saying is maybe your exposure to certain areas has been limited.
And you don't have any saints or realized beings in the Western world as far as I know.
Not yet.
Well, you don't, okay. Didn't Baba meet some people in New Mexico or something like that?
He had
that's-
agents.
There may
There's some
be
stuff going on. I don't-
agents,
He had agents.
but they're not coming out in the city.
Well, anyway, my new points are really, but devotion, you say, this is not
But
true.
I think in the future,
My
there's
grandmother
gonna
was
be,
a preacher. That's why I know this stuff. I was raised around people that wrote sermons and this whole thing. So, my mother used to write my grandma's sermons before she went to church, which is something I didn't even know until my aunt told me a few years ago. My aunt preaches now. Her son preaches. I come out of a seriously religious family in the black church. When you say no devotion, no, you are wrong.
Devotion to Christ.
Yes.
They have to Christ. Like his
Exactly.
family.
Yes.
God's family, they devoted to the Jesus. A lot.
Which is the same as Baba.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is the same as Krishna. But to understand what Baba's saying, if you were to read a little bit into the Indian scriptures like the Gita and all that. That would help you understand a lot of what he's talking about.
If I had to look over there for it, then maybe it wouldn't be meant for me. So that, when you get into all those philosophies and I got to go here and look there.
I think Baba goes straight to the heart.
No.
But I think the thing we don't have in the Western tradition is a commitment to a living master in the way that they have in India. Like when you really, the tradition of...
Baba's the only living master, unless that you would say Sai Baba
or Sai Baba or whoever the five perfect masters are.
Any master is alive if the believer believes enough. Even for the prophet Muhammad Rasulullah. If they believe enough, that master is alive. So,
the master is alive in the present moment, in spirit.
Of course, in the Zoroastrian faith, there was no tradition of following any living masters. And that was, so, and yet those people certainly took to...
You don't need all that. You don't need those crutches around. You don't need all. I think I know where you're going with your idea, but you're saying it is
direct.
I think the way you said it was a little
maybe I didn't express it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying you have to have direct contact with the spirit.
Right. Yeah, you know what? I am
with
Muslim all my life. I direct have with God.
Direct contact with
I can see.
Yeah.
Before I couldn't see Muhammad or Allah. Now.
But look at St. Francis became God realized. Actually, he was in the West too, I guess.
Direct.
Yeah, and he
didn't need a master.
Yeah, and he didn't, and it was through his devotion to Jesus, who was long dead, long out of the body anyway.
After.
So, yeah.
I think that's how strong illusion is myself. I don't think anything's ever changed. I think human perception is the only thing that changes. That's just a personal opinion.
Fred, St. Francis is in Goa.
No.
St. Francis Xavier is in Goa. His body is somewhat preserved.
It's still there.
It's still there. It's a special type of a body that never has decayed.
What is it at?
In Goa. St. Francis Xavier.
Where's Goa?
It's
south, 300 miles south.
It's on the coast. It's a Portuguese Indian community. The people dress very Western dresses and shirts.
His body is still there.
Yes, St. Francis Xavier.
Maybe it's mommy.
Well, I don't know if it's mummified. It's a phenomenon. It's a phenomena of.
They did have in the 60s, as when I was in India, and a lady bit the toe of his feet when she came.
Lady bit the toe.
Oh my
God! That's why they don't expose it.
Me, I wanted
I would have that. The body came out.
That's better.
Did you hear that?
No.
A lady visiting St. Francis Xavier.
They exposed the body to the public in about 1960 or so in Goa, and pilgrims that were walking by, one of the ladies was so devoted, maybe she bent to kiss his feet, and at that time she bit into his toe and blood came.
Oh my God.
And it's the body's 400 years old?
Yeah, since then they've not shown it to the public. They only, you can see
now it's closed in like a glass case, but the thing is, a little history of Goa, the Portuguese had this fortress right on this point where the ocean, has a nice view of ships coming across, and they had big cannons because they were occupying India, Portuguese, in the 15th century. 15th century. And they were there, and they were, using slave labor and all that. And they had we visited this fort and fortress, and we went to the dungeons. What were they dank? Did you see there? Rooms like with 20-foot high ceilings.
Right.
And we asked, we said the rooms were huge, like size of football fields. We says, where are the toilets? And the tour guide said, these corners, whenever a person would find a corner. So people's feces and urine were just laid. Anyway, it was something. But in 1963...
Where? You smell it.
In 1963, the Portuguese withdrew and gave Goa back to the Indian government.
When?
63.
Not till then?
1963.
They came through and smelled the toilets and they went,
the Indian government took action in got them out of
We got them out of it.
because British India had given, Britain had given India
I didn't realize
independence in 47.
Right, and so they stuck around to 63.
I didn't know that
20
either. I
years.
thought that was long.
Wow.
Well, St. Francis came there as a missionary, and I think he was on his way towards Macau, and he was murdered on the ship by people that didn't like the spread of the faith, the Christian faith, and he was buried somewhere on the
Exactly.
coast.
He was en route to someplace
En
else.
route to
Right.
Macau, and on the way back, some of his friends said, that's where, and where he was buried at the shore somewhere, there was a plant flowering there, where his body was buried, anonymously.
So they
dug it out.
dug it out, and then they put him in the special.
And then he was canonized as a
He's
saint by
canonized.
the Vatican.
And I remember when we visited with Gigi in 1987, we went to go, they had a weekly swap meet, and you wouldn't believe the swap meet right on the beach.
So cheap.
Yeah,
Cheap.
but you know how many hippies, Western hippies, some of them had not left India since the 70s.
They're still there,
and European hippies. One guy had matted, curly hair.
We saw that too.
He was just totally, and he was selling ganja and other things, and they were still in their stoned out states of mind. And I remember going to a beer garden that was sort of funky. It was just a couple tarps thrown over some bamboo with some on a dirt floor with some chairs, and there was American whatever rock and roll blaring from this radio, and we're sitting having a beer or tea and go anyway. So
Beaches in Goa,
Lane,
very interesting.
Lane, the beautiful grandmother is Vandara in Goa by beach.
oh yeah.
Beautiful and cheap.
And actually, there's an interesting story related to some of the sellers at the flea market. There was these dark-skinned Rajasthani women selling bangles. They had more bangles on their arms than I've seen people have in boxes. Bangles here, bangles here. They had these big nose rings here, and their eyes were luminous, and their whites of their eyes when it moved was just stark because they were so dark. Their skin was dark, and their teeth were white like emeralds. And I looked
Emeralds
at
are green, but
them.
that's
Not
okay.
emeralds,
Diamonds.
like ivory,
Pearls.
like
Pearls.
ivory. Something that sounded close to ivory. But went back to Mehrabad Pilgrim Center, and like 2 nights later, dreams of the Rajasthani women at this flea market, stealing her, putting her on a magic with these Rajasthani women on this magic carpet. She tells me this dream the next day, and I go, wow.
She didn't buy any of that ganja.
No, I swear she
It
did.
was just the beer garden.
Anyway, why don't we continue on?
We love Gigi, Fred, you know that.
But isn't that an amazing thing?
That's an interesting story, yeah.
Maybe she's a Rajasthani.
But we digress.
Well, this was...
Now let us progress.
Not too much. Anyway, all right. Are we ready?
Go ahead.
A Nawab, a Muslim prince, happened to hear of Meher Baba and came to see him at his humble hut along Ferguson Road. Distressed, the Nawab complained that he was the legal inheritor of his father's kingdom, but a younger prince had deprived him of it and usurped his lawful throne. The Nawab prayed before Baba for help in regaining the rich estate. Baba agreed to help him on the one condition that, after gaining his inheritance, the Nawab should financially help just one of the master's devotees. The Nawab promised, but was puzzled as to how Meher Baba would never be able to recover the estate for him. He explained that the young prince who had usurped his title was backed by the government. Baba requested him to be patient and see what developed. In a few days, the usurping prince suddenly died, and the Nawab conveyed the news to Meher Baba. Soon after, the Nawab regained his inheritance. However, he failed to keep his promise and did not help any of the master's poor devotees. When reminded by the Manali, Baba told them to drop the matter and not to remind the Nawab about it. During this period, a court case was brought to Meher Baba's attention by Ramju's brother-in-law, Abdullah Haran Jafar. He informed the master that after his father's death, his elder brother had wrongfully seized possession of the family's estate, and a lawsuit over rightful ownership was proceeding in the local court. His brother, however, was a very influential businessman, highly regarded in government circles, so Jafar expressed little hope of winning the lawsuit. Baba smiled, promising Jafar would win the lawsuit, and added that he would be compensated 30,000 rupees from the estate, but remarked that it would not be his brother who would pay this settlement. Jafar's case dragged on for 10 years, eventually reaching the High Court, but in the end he won. True to Meher Baba's words, Jafar was paid exactly 30,000 rupees from the estate, but it was paid by his nephews, not his older brother who had died. Jafar was very happy at the outcome and expressed his gratitude to Meher Baba by generously contributing to the Master's birthday celebration at Nasif in 1931, which was held on a very grand scale due to Jafar's donation. Dulat J. Irani, with her sister Frini, would visit Meher Baba at his hut along Ferguson Road. Dulat's husband,
Dawla.
oh, Dalat? Okay.
You know, there's one thing here. Is it Baba had a hut on Ferguson Road?
Yeah, that's what it says.
This is in Pune.
Yeah. This whole action is taking place in Pune.
This is before Mana Manzali.
Yeah, this is in Pune before they came to Bombay.
So the thatch hut was sort of a la Hazrat Baba Jan's neem tree. It's sort of like just a little temporary shelter. Is that
Yeah, he had told one of his early disciples, Sadashiv Patel, to build this hut for him. And that's where he was gathering his first, after the Tani Shah.
I see. This is right after the time. Okay.
Daulat Jahangir had been a forest officer for the government and traveled throughout India in his work. Jahangir died in his middle age some years past, suffering a severe ear infection. Daulat resettled in Pune with her two daughters, Mehera and Frini, who had not yet formally met Meher Baba. Mehera had been staying at Sikori under Upasni Maharaj's guidance and had noticed her. She remembered how remarkable his face looked. Daulat's daughter, Mehera, was destined to become the Master's chief woman disciple.
So Mehera, had contact with Upasni?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. I guess I did.
But that's okay.
Man, it's just
I know, you learn new stuff all the time.
It really is. This is...
Yeah. That's why we're here, Fred. Anyway, meanwhile, back at the ranch. Okay. At this time, I'll start this paragraph over.
The picture of Mara?
I told Mara that her eyes were pretty.
Yeah.
I told Mara that her eyes were pretty. She goes, "Oh, my eyes are very ordinary, but my mother's eyes were very beautiful."
Oh.
So you could see how pretty her mother's.
I can. Look at her mother's eyes. Wow.
And her sister is the one who later married Rustam, Adi's brother.
This was Mara's mother. Look at beautiful eyes.
She looks very
Beautiful eyes.
And her sister,
This is Mara. This is Mara, and this is her sister, Frank.
and that sister is Mehru's mother.
That sister is Mehru's mother.
Mehru was the daughter of her and Adi's brother, Rustam.
See their cousin.
We get back to that first cousin thing again.
Well, in the beloved, in the beloved, in the beginning there's a family tree in front of the beloved. Now it's starting to make sense why that family tree is depicted.
It's kind of confusing.
It's confusing, but there is being so close relatives are interrelated.
More like a family hedge.
He's so tall. Extraordinarily tall.
You know, I tell you, Mara's mother is beautiful. Look at little Mara.
I looked at Mama's eyes like that.
You know, can you picture little Mara? You know, and also, oh my, it's so sweet.
This ought to be interesting.
Yeah.
See how long this part goes.
We're getting to a real. Oh, Mara's white horse comes in here too. Oh, we got to get that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. We're gonna. Okay. All right.
We'll go as far as we can stand.
Daulat's daughter Mehera was destined to become the Master's chief woman disciple. At this time, she was a young girl of 15, quite preoccupied with her school studies. Mehera was also very fond of horses. Her father had taught her much about them, but after the death of her beloved father, she had no opportunity to pursue her pleasure of riding horses. One day, a school friend took Mehera to meet Bapu Ghante, saying that the ancient woman would grant any wish she asked. Bapu Ghante inquired of Mehera, "What do you want, my daughter?" Mehera spontaneously replied, "I wish I had a horse." Bapu Ghante gazed into the invisible in the sky and muttered, "A fine horse. You will have a very fine horse which will carry you to the heavens." Bapu Ghante's words were usually enigmatic, and Mehera could not understand what she meant. To her amazement, when she returned home, Mehera found that her mother had bought her a beautiful white horse that very day.
Can you read the footnote, please, or should I read it?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
I'll read 359. In Hindu mythology, this avataric advent is referred to as the coming of Kalki, the white horse avatar. Bapu Ghante's statement about a horse carrying Mehera to the heavens was prophetic. Wow. Okay, good.
During that time, during this time, Gulmai's son, Adi, had entered Deccan College in Pune and was boarding at Kodu's house with his cousin Sarosh. One day, Adi encountered Bailey, who urged him to go to Meher Baba at his Jodhpur hut, Jogdi hut near Ferguson College. When Adi went there, Baba instructed him to visit every evening and spend every Sunday with him. One day, Baba told Adi, "Keep your actions subject to your obligations."
Say that again.
Yeah. One day, Baba told Adi, "Keep your actions subject to your obligations. Your obligation is to devote your mind and heart to me, while at the same time studying at college. But always remember that the chief duty of your life is to think of me." Adi asked, "Should I think of you even while studying?" Meher Baba advised, "When studying, have no thought of me, but when you find the time, devote your entire attention toward me, remembering me in the same way in which you naturally it is the inner contact that matters." Rather than riding in a horse tonga, Meher Baba would always prefer walking to his parents' house or to Kasba Peth. A group of men disciples would accompany him on these walks, and he would casually converse with them as they strolled through Pune, sometimes giving short discourses or candid spiritual explanations. Once they passed a thick cactus hedge, Baba suddenly turned to Adi and asked, "Are you prepared to do anything at any time I tell you?" Adi answered yes, and the master ordered, "Take off your hat and throw it into that hedge." Adi was fond of fine clothes, and this was his favorite topi hat. He doubted whether his father would give him the money for a similar expensive hat, but overcoming his hesitation, he flung it on the top of the hedge, and Baba expressed his pleasure with Adi's obedience. You ready, Jeff?
Okay. A similar incident occurred after some days when the master ordered Adi to throw away his favorite piccolo. Again, Adi's obedience pleased Baba. Sometimes during these strolls through Pune, Meher Baba would suddenly stop and start gazing at the ground, as if minutely examining something. The disciples saw nothing and stood beside him in silence, not knowing what he was doing. One day, at the lane in back of his parents' house, the master stopped and started gazing intently at the ground. After a few minutes, he stood erect and asked, "Do any of you know what I am doing?" No one answered. Every minute, bodies are dying and coming back again. Every second, this process is occurring. I was watching and directing it all. After this, Adi thought, how wonderful if Baba would have given a glimpse of this sight to me. He was seeing the invisible worlds the whole time. But how about one of us seeing it? Family members of the Mandali would inevitably have some contact with the master. During this period, Bayramji's maternal uncle, Jamshed R. Irani, would occasionally come to see Meher Baba at the hut along Ferguson Road. The younger men affectionately called him Uncle Jambu, or Jambu Mama. He was a kind but sly old man. Somehow he found out that to come to the hut during the night was forbidden by Meher Baba, but he was curious to find out what the master did inside the hut at night. I've forgotten. Who was Bayramji?
Bayramji was his friend that he tutored.
Baba's friend?
Remember he tutored him?
I haven't read these in a long time, so I don't recall all the time.
So his brother doesn't come into it? Baramji?
No, that's, to satisfy his curiosity, Jambu decided to sneak up to the hut late one night. He left his house and walked in the direction of Ferguson College. But, no matter how hard he sought, Jambu could not find the hut. He was perplexed since he had lived in Pune many years and knew almost every nook and cranny of the city. Disappointed and confused as to how he could have lost the way, he returned home. The very next day, Jambu went to see Meher Baba, who coyly asked him if he had slept well. He replied that he had not. Feigning surprise, Baba inquired why. But Jambu, despite Baba's pressing, refused to admit what had happened. Shortly thereafter, while conversing with his disciples, Meher Baba sternly said, "If anyone has committed a fault or has deceived me, he will be forgiven, if he now openly admits his mistake. Otherwise, the reaction will be too bad." But stubborn Jambu still remained silent. Jambu's only son suddenly died 2 days later. At the funeral, he understood Meher Baba's warning and wholeheartedly repented for deceiving him. Later, he went and confessed the whole story before Baba and the Mandali. Jambu was profoundly grieved, and all naturally felt sorry for the old man. When thinking about the sequence of events, some wondered why the master had been so harsh in meting out such an extreme punishment for Jambu's naive curiosity. It seemed such a contrast to the great compassion Meher. However, no one dared to inquire. A few days later, Meher Baba was relaxing outside his hut with a group of disciples. In the course of the conversation, he told the following story about a Hindu perfect master. A Sadguru once set out with his disciples for begging. He approached a rich merchant who, instead of giving alms, shouted abuses and obscenities. Nevertheless, the Sadguru blessed him, saying, "Your profits will double." I remember this story. This story freaked me out a few years back. Then the Sadguru with his disciples approached the shop of a poor old man who received them with reverence.
Oh, you didn't mention the Sadguru that approached another wealthy.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, so the first guy he goes to, and the guy abuses him, and the Sadguru blesses him, saying, "Your profits will double." The Sadguru then approached another wealthier merchant who mistreated him even more badly. He, however, blessed this man, saying, "Your profits will quadruple." Then the Sadguru with his disciples approached the shop of a poor old man who received them with reverence and offered whatever he could provide from his meager store. The old shopkeeper had only one son whom he loved dearly. Before leaving, the Sadguru cursed him. "By the power of God, I pray that your son dies soon." The next day, the son was found dead. When the Sadguru's disciples found this out, they were bewildered by their master's behavior. The only man who had received them with humble reverence had been cursed, not blessed. Afterward, the Sadguru explained, "Both merchants were immersed in the mire of worldliness and did not want to be extricated. For that reason, I had to submerge them even more in the mire of the world by my blessings, so that one day they will cry to be pulled out." The poor shopkeeper was spiritually inclined, however. However, his love for his son was much too binding. It was an obstruction to the old man's progress on the path. The son was, unknowingly, a thorn in his father's side, and so I opened the door to the path by removing his son. Now, you tell me who was blessed and who was cursed.
Oh, Baba, what a story.
I still think he was cursed.
Oh, Baba, but you know something would really hit me. It says, both merchants were immersed in the mire of worldliness and did not want to be extricated. For that reason, I had to submerge them even more by doubling and quadrupling their profits by my blessing, so that one day they will cry to be pulled out. Oh, Baba.
In other words, what's apparent to the eye?
Life, or one day, you know.
Yeah.
I've thought about that many times after my supposed blessing with success and Academy Award nominations and things like that. Crying to be pulled out. And the other thing I thought of is Havovi was talking to us about how Mara Busfield's father died when she was like 14, Dara Dadachanji. and he was Arnavaz's younger brother. And his wife, Franey, who is now totally devoted to Baba, Havovi was saying that it was really not until Dara died that that Franey really came, closer to Baba. Yeah. And that it was like she had nobody else. She had 2 small children, and she had to lean on Baba to help her. So,
see, we don't know. We think we know because we perceive and we got these judgments. Bottom line is, you don't know. I know where your heart is at, so therefore I can count on that. The rest of it is pure conjecture.
That's why
it's just so true. It's so true. Like what he said about his son here. He said the man loved his son so much that it obstructed him.
Bao said too on this past trip, he was talking in the Pilgrim Center, and one of the things he was talking about was no expectations. He says he doesn't even ask Baba to let him die anymore. He says just, no expectations at all, because you just have to trust that what Baba's doing is
exactly
for your own benefit.
And I hope we live long enough to say that was okay.
You will. Maybe not in this body.
This is what I meant, Jeff. I don't want. No, we don't want you to leave. We don't want you to leave, Suhas.
I have a tip for you.
We need you to use questions and stuff. But we don't.
No effort.
No, we just know half of everything. We know the nothing side. We don't know the everything side.
Baba says we all live in ignorance.
Can you wait 15 minutes? Because 15 more minutes left, and it's a nice tape for you. So you have the meaning.
Yeah, wait. Come on, Suhas. I got some lemonade. Come on, let's go drink some lemonade. Come on, I want us some lemonade.
I'll wait.
Okay, we can continue while you're drinking lemonade.
Well, I'll just finish this one part here.
Yeah, this is so heavy. Wow.
When Meher Baba finished this story, the truth as to why he had apparently cursed Jambu dawned on everyone present. His curse was in reality a blessing. As a consequence, Jambu overcame his grief and became profoundly closer to Meher Baba from that time on, remaining surrendered to the Master. Do you want to?
Linda want to read.
Can you read?
I'll finish. Okay.
I don't have my glasses anyway.
Bailey's duty was to keep watch outside Meher Baba's hut, that he was strictly instructed to remain awake throughout the night. Once Bailey was so tired that he fell sound asleep. When he awakened, he was frightened as to what Meher might do for having slipped in his duty. Bailey looked inside Meher Baba's hut, but he was not there. Bailey was shocked and could not figure out where he had gone because the door remained locked from the outside. Bailey sat outside the hut, bewildered and worried. Once again he dozed off, but this time when he awakened and looked in the hut, Meher Baba had reappeared. Bailey was confounded by this experience and was uncertain if he had dreamt the incident. During this period, Bailey's brother Homi, who had been Merwan's enemy since they were schoolboys, came to the hut to confront him. Merwan had accepted his rascal brother as a disciple, and Homi found this inexplicable. Homi discovered that Merwan's appearance had profoundly changed since he had last seen him when he was working at the toddy shop. While gazing at him, Homi's heart ached with love. After some time, Meher Baba warmly embraced him, and later they reminisced about old times. From that day on, Homi too became devoted to the Master. When Arjun Supakar began keeping night watch at the hut, Meher Baba told him, "Always remain awake and never be afraid of anything." One night Arjun heard the rustling of leaves and was startled. Peering into the darkness, he saw 2 gigantic figures who suddenly started becoming larger and more ominous, reaching almost 20 feet in height. Arjun became petrified and could not utter a sound. At that very moment, Meher Baba emerged from the hut, irritated, and asked, "What's the matter with you?" Arjun pointed into the darkness, but there was nothing visible. Meher Baba scolded him, "Didn't I tell you not to be afraid when I am